Okay, hello. I have been meaning to make this video for a while since I got back my error submission from CGC. I have much that I want to discuss, going over different types of errors, how they compare to one another, my thoughts on some of them, some of the ways that I found them or that I hunt for them on eBay, prices, and some of my thoughts about CGC's grading process and whether or not they designate certain errors. I have some examples of things that I'm going to pull up on my laptop. I'm not very technologically savvy, so anything like screen recording or whatnot, that's beyond me. But I have a phone and I have a screen here, so I will be able to show some resources. And I have many examples of other cards that I have here that I am also going to be showing. This is probably going to be a bit long. I haven't mapped this out beforehand, but I have so much I want to talk about. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being like over half an hour. So maybe I'll put some timestamps in the description for different things that I cover here. But for now, I'm just going to get right into it. So first card from my error submission, I sent this No Damage Ninetales Express as a 1-card submission. So this card, I got very, very lucky when I found it on eBay. It was one of those search term, just Pokemon. I refreshed the page for new listings, and this is one of the first things that pops up. It was listed as a base unlimited Ninetales, buy it now for $12. And I was just purely fortunate enough to be one of the first knowledgeable people to lay eyes on that listing and buy it before anybody else could. It got an 8, which I am stoked about. This is a very clean copy. Surface looks great. It has a little bit of wear on the back, down there on the bottom corners, and the top corners. I think corners were the lowest on this. Yeah, 7.5. But so that is probably one of the best steals I've ever gotten, ever. I bought this for $12 in 2022. Ridiculous. Very, very happy to own this card. A Neiman copy of this is crazy. And that is not the only time that I have found a No Damage Ninetales for like under $100 on eBay. There are so many people that just don't know what they have and will just, you know, oh, 45 bucks, buy it now, 75 bucks, buy it now. A base Ninetales and it's no damage. So be on your guard. You never know what you might find. Next up, this is my Holo Shift Dark Scizor. This got a 6. I was not really expecting much condition-wise out of this. I mean, there's lots of wear on it, right? Looking at the back here especially, you can see all sorts of grime on the bottom of the card, wear on the edges, especially that edge down there. Not by any means a near mint card, but for an error such as this, as rare as it is, I mean, there's not much more I could ask for. Just looking at it under the lighting, it's incredible. Stellar card. This was an auction that I found. I was actually looking for Holo Bleeds. This was back when I was really, really big on collecting Neo-era Holo Bleeds. I'm kind of taking a break from that at the moment, but I was looking for Neo Destiny Dark Scizor, specifically because I really enjoy this artwork. Thought maybe I'd get lucky. I don't have too many Neo Destiny Bleeds with Holo Bleed outside of the art box, but you never know. And I saw this was an auction on, I don't know, the second or third page of search results. Had a few days remaining, lightly played condition, pretty poor photos, but I was checking everything. And I just happened to see that, hey, this is a Holo Shift. Blew my mind. I made an offer to the seller. It was either the UK or Germany. It was somewhere in Europe. I offered 125 bucks plus shipping. They accepted. The rest is history. Very fortunate again on my part, but it definitely pays to be looking through those eBay results. So this is my Holo Bleed Neo Genesis Lugia. This did not receive an error designation, which I didn't really expect it to, but I have a few of these. This is the best condition one. I figured if I'm gonna grade one, I wanted to grade one that was both a prominent Holo Bleed and in good condition. This one fit the bill. So, designating Holo Bleeds as an error with CGC, This is something that has been on my mind for a while. Ever since I first learned about CGC, I was hopeful that they would, and they do not. I can kind of understand their reasoning, because what really is the Holo bleed error? Now, I'm not an expert on printing Pokemon cards, I'm not going to pretend to be one, and I don't want to spread misinformation, so if I say anything incorrect, bear with me and feel free to correct me in the comments. But on Pokemon cards, there's a white opaque layer that is applied to the card with the purpose of preventing the holo from showing on portions of the card where it is not meant to show. What I assume is happening with cards like this Lugia that are, so-called holo bleeds, is that that opaque layer is messed up somehow. Maybe it's thinner than normal, maybe it's obstructed somehow, maybe it's like sort of an insufficient ink sort of deal. Whatever the case may be, it's obviously a spectrum where there's not really anything in particular that's missing in a technical standpoint. So they aren't going to designate this as like a missing print layer because the opaque layer is still on this card. It's just not really doing its job so well, is my assumption. And real quick, let's see if I can pull up a light here, make this dazzle a little bit more. Gorgeous. And just to get a quick family photo in the video, I'm gonna pull up my other two holo bleeds here. Let's see if I can make this work. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. 1, 2, 3. Pretty as can be. So I'm keeping the other two as binder copies. I do have a binder collection of these that is sort of on hold for now while I'm focusing on other stuff. Set these aside. Okay. Next up, speaking of a missing opaque layer, that is exactly what's going on with this Ancient Mew. Now, I'll show off the card real quick for a second. This is a missing print layer, is what CGC termed it. Again, I'm assuming here that it's the white opaque layer that's missing on this card, both the front and back side. I'll pull up another Ancient Mew here for reference. This is a very beat up copy I had as a kid. And you can see all of these portions that are meant to not be holographic are in fact holographic on this copy. It's much darker and it's just a full holo all over the card on the front and also on the back. If we compare, we'll see that these blue parts are not holographic, whereas on this card they are. Very Yu-Gi-Oh-esque. Now, behind me here, I'll set this down for a second. This is where I first learned about this error. If you're looking at my laptop screen here, I'm gonna try not to move my phone while I'm doing this, even though I know I could probably make this a lot clearer, just because I don't want to destabilize anything on the video. But this is a thread from October 2020, where this guy, Chicken Palma, made a want to buy thread for an uncut sheet of Ancient Mew promos, and in record time actually made that deal work out. This is a video of his showing his uncut sheet where he has a copy of Ancient Mew on this sheet that is significantly darker than the other copies, that guy right there. This is, almost 2 years ago at this point. The first I'd ever seen of this error. I never saw one pop up for sale after finding this thread on E4. And then on eBay, ZNG Emporium listed a copy of this for 1,000 or best offer, and I made an offer of 600, and he took it. So I am just over the moon to finally have one of these. It's the only one I've ever seen for sale. In theory, I think there have been sales of other copies of this card before. I haven't really seen those, but I'm sure they're out there. But yeah. Missing print layer, Ancient Mew. Gorgeous. Okay, next up. Here is an Insufficient Ink gray stamp base unlimited Machamp. That's a mouthful. This is a card that I got in a binder collection probably about a year ago. I don't do binder collections very often. I just focus mostly on singles when I'm hunting for things on eBay. This binder collection just seemed like a pretty good deal at the time, and it just so happened to have this Machamp in it. which is just, it just struck me as a really interesting card for 3 reasons. One, it's a gray stamp. I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that there are gray stamp first edition Shadowless Machamps. I think it's just the unlimited version that can be a gray stamp, to my knowledge. It has this magenta circle here, which to me is pretty obviously Insufficient Ink, if you've seen Insufficient Ink. And I'll catch it in the light here, or at least I'll try to. You can see those streaks. Let's do this. Like right there, and there in the middle too. You can see them on the holo layer as well. They're running all over the surface of the card. Like right there and right there. I don't know what to make of those. I don't know what to call them. I don't know if that's part of the Insufficient Ink or if it's just this magenta circle. It's something that I noticed on the card. But so this was a wild ride of a card, to be quite honest. Insufficient Ink is a pretty cool error. But the coolest thing about this to me is that a few days ago, as I was browsing eBay for base unlimited holos, looking for additional ink errors, I found this copy of Machamp, which I have purchased, it's in the mail, which is the exact same error. Gray stamp, Insufficient Ink circle on the right side in the same spot. That is pretty cool. So this is evidently a repeatable thing. There are multiple copies of this gray stamp Insufficient Ink error. Who would have thought? But when this gets here in the mail, I'm going to see if it also has those patches of what looks like something smeared or missing on the surface. Because I'm very, very interested to see how that works out. Okay, next up. This one, not technically, well, it is an error, but it's more so a variant at this point because it is so widely recognized. This is the red heart or pink heart stamp or ink spot, or however you want to turn it. They say red heart error Clefairy. When I first saw this, it was a few years ago on E4, and it was a very dubious thread of people not really sure whether or not this is a real error or if it's just somebody stamping the cards intentionally after the fact. And I can see the hesitation there. It's not in very mint condition, but that's fine. I just wanted a copy with the error because I always thought it was really cool. Let's see if I can close in on this. That's not so bad. You can see a little faint ring around the heart. Just something that I think is cool. I think I paid like 300 bucks for this on eBay. Probably a bit high given the condition, but it looked better in the photos. And either way, I'm just happy to have one. 6.5 on that. Okay, next. A base unlimited Zapdos did not receive an error designation. I'll try to zoom in on what I was going for. Wow, that actually looks better than I thought. You can see here all these thin vertical black lines all over the surface of the card. And what's more, this is a holo bleed. If I can catch that a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Above the 100 damage right there over the thunder. So I never knew what those thin black lines were or if it was related to the holo bleed. I have seen this, I'll set this down for a second, on E4. Which one of these is it? This one. There are other people, other collectors. This is on the Show Off Error Cards thread, October 2020. Here's a guy with a base Clefairy that has the exact same thing going on. To me, this is very visually apparent that, like, okay, yeah, there's something up here. Something's going on with the card. Is this like an insufficient ink thing, like a layer of the card is obscured or missing? Is this like, let's see if I can zoom out on these. There's a Chansey with it. Is this like an additional ink thing where it's just like little thin lines of black ink? I've never known. And then here actually is the same Zapdos that I just got graded, that I posted on this thread myself. So to me, like, this is a known thing for collectors. This is something that's been identified and it has been repeated across multiple holos in the set. It definitely seems atypical to me, but did not receive an error designation, so I do not know what to make of it, but I do think it's very cool. And I'll touch more on CGC designating or not designating errors in a little bit, but for now, let's keep going through some cards. So, first edition Jungle Jolteon, non-holo. This is the pink stain additional ink on the back that happens on all first edition Jungle rare cards. This one I picked up probably 2019 at some point. It was at a local game store near me, local card shop. I was sifting through their bulk and I just found it. Didn't at the time have any idea about the Jungle rares with pink backs. I wasn't even sure if this was a factory error or if it was some kid with a highlighter. And the store themselves weren't sure either. They were kind of hesitant to sell it to me, but eventually just decided, hey, it's probably damaged, and they gave it to me for less than 10 bucks. And I just held on to it all these years. Suddenly CGC trading cards becomes a thing. And I send it in, and voila, additional ink. And shout outs to PokeRiz on Instagram. Hooked me up with a Victreebel with the exact same error. So I've got a bit of a set going here. Heck yeah. These look really cool together. Obviously a full set is going to be hard to put together and it's probably going to take a while / be really expensive, but for now I've got 2 of them. And honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised that they're both near mint. Jolteon actually got an 8, which I was not expecting. It's got a little bit of whitening at the top and on the bottom here on the edges that to me certainly precluded an 8.5 surface or 8.5 edge subgrade, but CGC says otherwise. Surprising to me, but I'll take it. So there's those 2. I'll show the backs one more time. Woo! Okay. Next. This is my Jungle Unlimited Flareon. Very, very off-center. This did receive the OC centering and did receive the minor miscut designation. It's also near mint, which I think is super sick. Now, I am typically not much of a miscut collector, off-center collector. Usually not my cup of tea. I mean, I think they're cool, just there's other things I focus on more. But specifically, Jungle Flareon is one of my favorite artworks ever. Love the colors on this card and love the character art. And this particular copy, I mean, it's near mint. It has the minor miscut with an alignment dot there in the top left. So I thought this was a little bit too good to pass up. This was an auction maybe half a year ago or so at this point. I think, well, it was either the tail end of last year or the beginning of this year, 2022. I paid around 100 bucks for it, I think. So yeah. This is, I think, my only like designated miscut card. I have others, but they're not graded. Super happy to have an 8.5 on that. I think that's really neat. Okay, next. Here's a card that did not receive an error. The one I was going for would be missing holofoil pattern. Now, some of you may not know about the fossil no star or light star holos, but essentially there are fossil holos where, and I don't think it's exclusive to fossil, but maybe more common in fossil, where the stars on the holofoil are notably absent. In some cases, entirely absent or close to it. This Aerodactyl is not entirely absent, as we can see. You can count them like 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like, 6 or 7 stars on there. But they are very difficult to make out. They are quite faded and only show up in certain angles of light. So to me, this is very obviously an error. It did not get an error designation, but I think it is undeniable that this is an atypical copy of the card, and that the absence of stars on the holofoil is very much a spectrum and not at all like an is or isn't black and white sort of deal. I will show you some examples here. Not only did I have that Aerodactyl that I sent in, I also sent in this Ditto for the same thing. Again, markedly fewer stars than normal, but there are a few that you can catch at the right angle, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so. also did not receive the error designation. And for these, I mean, the grades, the actual grades are kind of whatever. I was going for the error. I wanted to see error missing holofoil pattern, did not get it. I will show you, where did I put them? Here. So I'll set this Ditto down for a second. This is a No Star Moltres that I purchased for $900 from a great guy on Instagram. Hollow Bleed King is his handle. Or is it? Is that his name? Okay, I'm not the social media guy, okay? I know there's like a username and then there's like an @ for your Instagram profile. I always called him Hollow Bleed King. That's like his name on Instagram, we'll say. But anyway, $900 for this. This is the missing holo pattern error. It's first edition, it's Moltres, which is maybe my favorite fossil holo. It's up there for sure. It's like top 2 or 3. So I thought it was super cool. You can see right there beneath his wing, I just saw it, that's a star. And there are others on here aside from that one. There's like one up there somewhere. Let me see if I can catch any of these. So it's certainly difficult, there you go, that one's showing a lot. Certainly difficult to see, but by no means is this an utter absence of stars on the holo. I have seen a good at least 3 or so on this card. I think I saw one down there. I'll try real quick with my phone light, but I think I'm just gonna keep going here if I can't find them. So you can see that like this is a spectrum, and CGC is very much, yeah, I'm not gonna get it. They're very much looking for something like this Moltres that for all intents and purposes is entirely absent, which is understandable. But what bothers me here is that they will grade cards like that. Let me grab my Ditto again. They'll grade cards like this, and they'll give it the error, missing holofoil pattern, even though there are technically some stars on the holo. And it's not really like a cut and dry thing in my mind. Like some errors on like WotC stuff, it's really obvious where it's like, oh, an additional ink spot or an insufficient ink spot or a printer hickey, where it's like there's something on or missing from the card and it's obvious and it's tangible. This is like some cards have fewer stars than others. Some cards have markedly fewer stars than others. I'll show this Lapras here that I have. It's PSA 8. You know, this thing is very low on stars. You can, again, see a few on the left there. Easier than, you know, more easily than you could see the ones on the Moltres. But make no mistake, this is very atypical for Lapras. So I would cross this thinking that it deserves some sort of error designation, because you will not find too many fossil holos that have, you know, this little amount of stars on them. And similar to like with my Lugia Holo Bleed, it's not like the opaque layer on that card is entirely missing, it's just not really doing its job. And that's sort of how this error seems to me, because the stars are not entirely missing on that Moltres, but it did receive the error because it is more prominently missing than any of the other cards that I have tried to send in so far. So something like that, it still seems like it's not very ironed out on CGC's end with what is and isn't designated as an error. And I'm going to keep talking about that later with some of these other cards and examples that I have. But so like this Zapdos, for example, I just picked up recently. Very low on stars, very similar to the Moltres. I know there's at least one on here that I can catch. I'm hoping that it gets the error. I think it deserves the error. But in a black and white world of does this or does this not have stars, the answer is technically yes. There are some on here that are just very difficult to see. So I do think those cards are very cool. With the Ditto and Aerodactyl, to me, I still consider them like they're low on stars and it's obvious that they are, so to me that's an error. And at the very least, there'll be placeholders in my collection until I can find more prominent versions of that error, regardless of whether or not CGC thinks that they meet the cutoff. Whatever that cutoff is, I'm not entirely sure, and it's not very clear. Okay, moving on. Something a bit more standard. This is the blue stain error Haunter with the stain on the right side. I really like this card for a few reasons. A, I just love Haunter. B, I think that this error looks really good color-wise, and it looks like he's using Shadow Claw on the art to me, which is just kind of cool for a ghost type. See the back there? This one was in pretty good shape. Pretty good subs. Very happy with it. This was an auction. I think it ended just over 100 bucks. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just over 100 bucks, which to me is a pretty good deal. I think that's a really cool error. Just gonna move on from that one. Okay. I am very pleased about this. Just seeing the error on the slab for this Black Star Mew Holo number 9 is pretty freaking sweet. It did actually get the additional ink. I'm surprised. I didn't think it would. I'll zoom in here. You can see right there over the Psychic Energies next to Devolution Beam, all of that additional yellow ink. And then up there on the Mew itself, all of that additional yellow. It's the sort of thing that at a distance you can gloss over very easily, but it is undeniably there. It got an 8.5, which is about what I was expecting. A few years ago, I purchased 43 copies of this card from a local store near me, and it was $5 a piece. This was like 2018. And several of these cards happened to have this odd amount of yellow ink on them. I've graded maybe a dozen or so over the years, gotten 10 or so PSA 9s, like 2 PSA 8s. I got a CGC 9, and then this one came as an 8.5 with the error, which I'm very excited about. I do have, I'll show you an example. This is an ordinary Ancient Mew, Black Star Promo Mew. And then here's another one of my error copies, again with all of that extra yellow. You can see the close-up there showing the difference. And I'm lucky that the Mew itself is white. That makes it much more visually apparent that there's additional ink there. But I have, I think, 2 or 3 more of these in my binder, so I'll probably end up sending more of those. See if I can get a higher grade on that error than 8.5. But I was pretty excited about that. Just to see that they actually got the error was pretty cool. Okay. So, my Dark Arbok Holo Shift came back as a 6.5. Did in fact receive the misaligned print layer, as it should. This is all pretty much what I expected. I knew that this card wasn't in fantastic condition. I didn't expect the high grade. This is another lucky eBay find. I've done this, I think, twice now with Dark Arbok, where I have randomly found just a Dark Arbok Holo, like lightly played, listed for like 10 bucks, and it's a Holo Shift. This is one of those very easily overlooked errors that, was this a theme deck that it was produced in? It might have been a theme deck. But anyway, a lot of people will throw this up on eBay and not realize it's a Holo Shift. You know, it is kind of subtle. Well, kind of. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you're looking for it to, like, you know, seasoned collectors. But the one thing I wanted to talk about most with this is the fact that I have 2 of these, and the first one, exact same error in better condition, did not receive the error at CGC. Interesting, right? So I reached out to customer service about this card, saying, hey, this is a Holo Shift, and you guys didn't say it's a Holo Shift. What's going on? They said it's a mechanical error. Send it back, and they'll update the information, reholder it free of charge. That's all good and fine. My qualm about that is there is no way for me to tell whether or not you missed it and it's a mechanical error on your end, or whether or not you're simply not designated an error Like CGC doesn't view it as an error at all. So something like that base Zapdos with all those black lines, is that just not an error, or is that something that you guys missed? And if I pointed it out to you, would you say it's a mechanical error and have me send it back? I'm not sure. And on that point, I will showcase my next card. This is my Dark Raichu that I sent in, came back as a 6.5 with no error. Now, this is not in phenomenal shape. The thing I was going for here is the insufficient ink error. As you'll see, all of the black ink that would normally appear in the shadow along the art box, and a lot of it that appears in the frame around the art box, is missing. So this frame is much lighter gold than normal, and it almost looks shadowless. If you zoom in on that, you'll see that all of that is missing. I have an ordinary copy here for comparison. And the comparison is very marked. It's very obvious. Now, my issue with this is that CGC, and this is the reason I sent this card in, has in fact, you'll see back here, designated this card as an error with the exact same error. This is not particularly prominent. I have other low ink rocket holos with like gray text and much lighter gold borders around the art box. So again, it's very much a spectrum sort of error, but it's a bit of a slap in the face to see that this card in the back here will receive the error designation when it is identical to mine, and mine will not. And then here I'll showcase, this is another copy, same error, only much more prominent, and you'll notice the text is very light gray. The frame around the art box is much more golden. It's missing more black ink than mine is. If you look like on these splotches here, this copy is actually sick in the back here. I would love to own this. It's a crazy card. But so this low ink error, this is a spectrum. Dark Raichu specifically is the only one in the Team Rocket set with this error that will lose the shadow entirely along the art box. Don't know why that is, maybe because it's a secret rare, it was printed differently somehow. But this is sort of the same issue as with the Dark Arbok. It's like, I know that you guys would view this as an error because I have evidence that you view it as an error. So this is probably just a mechanical error, but how am I supposed to know that as a collector? You know what I mean? Like, am I supposed to reach out to your customer service for every single one of my errors that didn't receive the designation that I think should? Because that's a bit of a hassle. And I wish that there was maybe a resource or something that would specifically list all the errors you guys will recognize, or that it was at least more obvious. Like if I could get some notes or something when I receive my submission back for like, hey, yeah, we see that your Lugia has a hollow bleed, but because it's not missing the opaque layer, it's not an error. Like that sort of thing would be helpful. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say for the most part for now. I do think these low ink dark Pokemon Holos from Team Rocket are really cool. I have many more that I would like to send in. I probably still will, even though this one didn't get the error. But we'll see. Moving on. This is my Neo Discovery Espeon, or one of the two I sent in two. This one is an Obstruction. You can see in the top right corner there over the HP and over the holo, it's obstructed, and then Espeon took a bite out of the bite right there. It is bent in the corner, which is why I got a 5.5. This card, really all I was hoping for is that it would be an Obstruction, and then I could have that holdered as an Obstruction, and it is, and I do. So I'm very happy about that. This was another auction that ended around $100. It seems to be a theme for some of these errors. Maybe people don't trust it, or some of these auctions fly under the radar, but I thought $100 for an Obstruction on a card as iconic as Discovery Espeon was a pretty good deal. So very happy about that. And now I will show This is my strongest Neo Holo bleed that I have. This is my Neo Discovery Espeon. Just moving some stuff around real quick. Here we go. Just wanted to get my phone so I could show the light here. Oh yeah. Let's see if, maybe I'll switch like this. It's hard to get the angle on these. There we go. So no error designation on this. Same issue as the Lugia. They probably will not recognize just like a thin opaque layer because it's not entirely missing like it was on my Ancient Mew. Understandable. Understandable. Sort of. Here's the back. It is bent, which is why the surface is a 6, but I'm pretty happy that this is still a 7 overall. That's pretty cool. Now for something super cool that I am very excited about. This is my Neo Discovery Scizor. I've always thought of this as a double holofoil thing, sort of like the Neo Rev Holos. This is actually insufficient ink, which in hindsight makes a lot of sense. You'll notice that the holo that seems like it's been doubled up here is over the claw marks and the eyes of the Scizor here. And you'll also notice that this has a marked absence of white ink as compared to this additional ink. This is a Quachancy's Instagram. You'll see all of this extra ink on this. This is an error card, it's an additional ink. Neo Discovery Scizor, same card. Only compare the amount of white ink on the claw marks, the white ink down there around the wings, and on the left side. It's very obvious that like this is probably the stain, like it's probably the white ink, I guess. Or maybe it's more than that. Again, not an expert, just conjecture. But it looks like it's the same layer of ink that's either been applied in excess, as with Quachancy's error, or, what's the word I'm looking for? Diminished, I guess, on this copy. And I have my own copy here, maybe for a better comparison. It's sort of similar to Quachancy's. It's like, it does have a little bit of additional ink on the left border, and it's got a lot of that white on the claw marks, just so you can see right there. Just not quite as prominent of an additional ink copy. But yeah, so I thought that, I mean, this is such a sick card. This is one of my favorites that I have. I also had here, this is the first I'd ever seen of this error. May 2020, this guy on E4 posted about this first ed Discovery Scizor, wondering what its grade would be, and everyone noticed, hey, that has like a really weird holo. This is the same thing going on. Let's try this side. It's the insufficient ink. So it's super cool that this error can happen on first ed copies, and I'm definitely looking for one because I think that would be super sick. One of my favorite cards in my collection for sure. I got that, it was listed as a lightly played buy it now on eBay for like $27 or something. Maybe a couple years ago. Crazy. Okay, next up, my EX Dragon Shedinja. This one surprised me. I thought this was going to be additional ink, actually insufficient ink, with this white strip across the back, which in hindsight does make sense. For comparison, I have this Toys R Us Charmander with the same thing kind of going on, where the insufficient ink results in these little white dots. So white in both cases. I'm assuming that there's a white layer here that when there's insufficient ink, this just happens sometimes on the back, that it shows up as white. But I think this is a super cool card. It's near mint, got the 8.5, got a 10 centering. I think that was my only 10 subgrade on this submission, which is pretty sweet, and 9.5 edges. Okay, Shedinja. But I just love this artwork. Some gorgeous, gorgeous colors. This is Himeno, yeah. It also has this little yellow streak here, which didn't know what to make of it, still really don't. But yeah, so an 8.5 error on this card. I think this is a really cool card to have an error on. Don't see too many EX Dragon Holos with errors. This I got for like 20 bucks. Buy it now, as I was just looking through Shedinja Holos on eBay maybe close to 2 years ago, and I've just been holding on to it. And then lastly, I have my Rockets Hitmonchan EX with a very obvious thin magenta line on the front. This was a very recent pickup. I don't really collect EX era that much, and I'm certainly not going after EX Team Rocket returns, although I do think it's a really cool set, especially the reverse holos. This was an auction. I got it for just over 200, I think, which I thought was a pretty good price because it's a near mint, you know, holo from one of the more expensive EX era sets with a really cool error. So it's kind of a one-off for me because I'm not collecting this set, and I might end up selling this guy, but still very cool nonetheless. Got the additional ink, near mint condition, an 8 overall, 7 surface and 3 9s, so it's probably just a lot of holo scratches if I had to guess. And that's about it. I was kind of all over the place in this video. There's still a lot that I want to iron out and discover more about with like CGC's grading process and the sort of errors that they will or will not designate depending on whether it's a spectrum. And it seems like sometimes they will only recognize and designate the ones on the very extreme of a spectrum, which is understandable. Oh yeah, one final example I wanted to show on that regard, talking about low ink. This is not part of the submission. This is a base Ninetales with very faded gray text, which did get the error. It is an insufficient ink error. I think it's a super cool card. So like for reference here, here's some Dark Gyarados that I have, where here's a pre-release and here's an ordinary copy, and if you just compare those two, this one on the left very obviously has grayer text than the one on the right, but isn't quite as gray as this Ninetales. So this sort of thing to me is like, yes, it's an error, but is it gonna get the designation? I don't really know. And I don't like having to play the guessing game when it comes back without an error of, you know, is this a mechanical error on CGC's end when they holdered it, or do they just not designate it? So some notes from them or just a way to know would be helpful. It's kind of my final thought on that. I'll probably do some more videos in the future about, I've been going after base set unlimited holos with additional ink. I'll show this Raichu real quick that I just picked up. I have a few others coming in the mail. This guy, this is what's coming up next. Been finding lots of these on eBay. And I want to do a video on like some methods that I use to search for these sort of errors on eBay. Just like search terms you can use, how to set up your search terms, things to look out for and whatnot for different errors. But yeah, that's about it for now. I hope you guys enjoy the cards. If anyone actually watches this and has feedback, feel free to leave it. This is all kind of scuffed. I'm just kind of sitting here with my phone, but I hope everyone enjoys the video. Thank you.